Hi there, my name is Rebecca Bunn and I'm a member of Young Australia 21 and also an Honorary Youth Advisor to the Board of Australia 21. And today I'm going to introduce Chris Ruane. Chris is a Welsh Labor Party politician who was a Member of Parliament between 1997 to 2015. And he's the President of the UK Mindfulness All-Party Parliamentary Group. Chris believes that mindfulness can be central to how government responds to stress and mental health difficulties. And today, Chris will be speaking about Mindful Nation UK, which is the culmination of a lot of years' work by Chris and others to bring mindfulness training into British politics. So please join me in welcoming Chris.
Okay, first of all, it's great to be Skyping with you. It's 5:30 in the morning, GMT, and from here in London. And congratulations to Lynn Reader and all of you who have been involved in convening this conference. It's an excellent conference. It's a grassroots up conference. You're not leaving it to the politicians, you're actually prompting the politicians. So well done to Lynn and all the team. And what I particularly like about the conference is that you have political objectives in that. Some people find politics a little bit awkward, but we won't get anywhere without putting mindfulness into policy and politics. So well done for having that on the agenda. And I think the purpose today is really to see if we can progress mindfulness in politics in Australia and into public policy in Australia to the extent that we've done it in the UK. And I'm not saying that we've done everything correct in the UK, but we have managed to put it on the political agenda. Within Parliament, about 3.5 years ago, I suggested to Professor Richard Layard, who himself is one of the foremost experts on well-being in the whole of the world, if he would help me establish a mindfulness group. He contacted Professor Mark Williams from Oxford University, and Mark is the scientist who's produced the science that's convinced the National Institute for Clinical Excellence to establish mindfulness for repeat episode depression in the National Health Service here in Britain, and that was in 2004. So we had one of the best teachers in the world. He started 3.5 years ago, and 130 MPs and Lords have had mindfulness training since, and 200 members of staff have also had mindfulness training. So about 2 years ago, we decided to put our personal practice into policy practice, and did what Gandhi said, we were to be the change you want to see. So we established this Mindful Nation report, and it's a fantastic report. There were 80 people who gave evidence in 8 evidence sessions. There are 240 references, most of them scientific references, in the back of the book. It produces all of the science, but also people's personal testimony on how mindfulness has changed their lives around. And I think it's important that we get the pitch right. This is not just about fixing people who are broken or getting people back to normal. It's also about the flourishing of the individual, the flourishing of societies, and indeed the flourishing of the world. The World Health Organization says that by 2030, mental health will be the biggest health burden on the whole of the planet. In parliamentary questions that I've put down in the House of Commons over the past 9 years, some of the answers are terrifying. There's been a 500% increase in the issuing of antidepressants in a 20-year period. 32.3% of British people between 15 and 25 have one or more psychiatric condition. 90% of the prisoners in British jails have one or more psychiatric condition. I'm not saying mindfulness. I think we've got to be careful how we pitch mindfulness. Mindfulness is not the be-all and end-all. It's not the cure-all for everybody. But I believe that mindfulness has got an important part to play in helping to fix those mental health issues and, as I say, helping society flourish. And I think it's got to be led by science and pure science. I know this upsets some traditionalists. We recognise its Eastern traditions, but we will not get this past policymakers if we lead on its Eastern traditions. It's pure science that we've got to lead with, and there is science out there. When John Kabat-Zinn came over to Parliament 3 years ago, he showed the graph of scientific research around the world from 1970 to the present day, and it starts about here and it goes right the way up like that. So there's masses of research and masses of data. Some of it absolutely excellent, copper-bottomed, others not so. So we've got to sort the wheat from the chaff, analyse it, turn that science into policy. And that's quite difficult. Even when you have the science, in 2004 the science for mindfulness in the treatment of repeat episode depression was accepted, but even today there's only about 10% of British doctors that recommend it. So I think as an initiative in Australia, I would advise pick on the most the best science that you've got. It might be in Britain with the National Health Service for repeat episode depression. It might be for the armed forces, the MFIT program for the Marines in America. It might be the work that Craig Hassett has done in Monash University in putting mindfulness and the core curriculum of a university, helping future doctors and teachers stabilise themselves, so that when they go into their medical career or their teaching career, they can help stabilise the minds of thousands, or if not tens of thousands of people. So identify which areas you want to push with your politicians. Show them the science, show them the best practice, show them that it has been taken up by politicians on a personal level and a political level in the UK, by Tim Ruane in the United States, by 30 of the 150 Dutch MPs in the Dutch Parliament, by 10% of the Assembly members in the Welsh Assembly. These 4 countries have introduced it, and the great work that Jack Heath is doing, hopefully after your Australian election, we'll see progress in the Australian Parliament. Next week I'm going out to the French Parliament to talk to their deputies. There's initiatives lined up for Ireland, Southern Ireland, for Canada, for Germany, for the European Union, and a whole host of other countries. So if we can get mindfulness established in these legislatures, if we can get politicians practicing and politicians developing policy, then I think we will be doing right by them as individuals. It will help to stabilise them. It will give them the gifts of the mind that will lead to better decision making, better discernment, more equanimity in their personal life, in their professional life. I think it would lead to flourishing in politics and flourishing in policy. So I'm doing my little bit over on this side of the world, and I'm prepared to help out in any way with politicians and with advocates, grassroots advocates over there in Australia. And it's great to see that both Craig Hassett and Jack Heath will be coming over, and indeed Lynn Reader will be coming over in July. And I think it's important that we make those international connections so that we can ring people up and say, this is the latest research, this is the latest best practice in our country. How about you get your politicians to have a look at this? And Tim Ruane, who I met in Washington a month ago, has suggested that within 2 years we have an international gathering of mindful politicians from around the world to cement those relationships so that best policy, that best practice can be spread throughout the globe. The pharmaceutical industry does it. It spends $19 billion a year on PR, on government relationships, on getting their message across to decision makers. I'm afraid over here in the UK it comes down to Jamie Bristow, who is the director of the Mindfulness Initiative, who works for 2 days a week, and myself, who does it voluntarily, and indeed, as you know, Australian advocates who do work voluntarily over there. It's a big job, but I think working together across continents, across hemispheres, that we can do it, and that we can make the world a better place. So I'll leave it there, and I'm prepared to answer any questions that the audience have got for us. Thank you very much. Or as we say in Wales, diolch yn fawr iawn.
Feed them back through the microphone.
If someone else has a microphone. I'll take the microphone. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. We're just going to see if anyone has any questions now. Get a microphone to you.
Hello, my name's Nadia. Would you be able to give us an example to demonstrate how mindfulness in the UK Parliament has made a difference?
last October had 3 Conservative ministers, the Secretary of State for Education, the Mental Health Minister, and indeed the Sports Minister, who was the Conservative co-chair of our all-party parliamentary group. And it's unusual to have 3 ministers at an event. It's unusual for them to stay for the full hour. It's usually 10 minutes and run. And the 3 of them attended, the 3 of them spoke, and 3 of them will be move policy forward. I give the example of the Mental Health Minister, Alistair Burt, who is very keen to have mental health and physical health woven together. He's very keen to have education and mental health woven together, and he's helping us devise a system of getting mindfulness locked into the IAPT program. The IAPT program is Improved Access to Psychological Therapies, which was introduced by Richard Layard in 2008. Richard, as you know, was the helped me set up the mindfulness group. So the IAPT program is a very, very successful program. It's treated over 1 million people in the past 8 years. The science is proven with that. Richard Layard has kept all of the statistics to prove its efficacy, and mindfulness is being grafted into that program. So now we have a vehicle to take mindfulness forward. So I think that's one of the positive outcomes that have come from our Mindful Nation launch. Also, within the prison service, there's a willingness amongst prison ministers, Conservative prison ministers, and formerly coalition prison ministers, to take mindfulness forward in the prison system. In North Wales, where I come from, they're building what they call a Titan prison for 1,800 prisoners, and they hope to have mindfulness in place for the staff and for the inmates in that prison when it opens in a few years' time. So I think our Mindful Nation document has produced a kind of groundswell of appreciation, a groundswell of opinion and political acceptance that mindfulness does have a place to play in prisons, in the health service, in the education service, and in the workplace.
Thank you, Chris. We have another question.
The thing that I would like to see more of in our politicians is compassion. And I wonder how you see mindfulness in the service of compassion in the UK amongst politicians.
I think mindfulness is the key to opening many of the gifts of the mind. Compassion, empathy, gratitude, discernment, equanimity. The list goes on. And I think those are the things that help us to thrive. And I know from a personal perspective that it's helped me. John Kabat-Zinn said when he came over 3 years ago, Chris, you need to work on your parachute before you need to open it. And when I lost my seat last year, which was a traumatic time, he emailed me. He said, Chris, how are you? And I emailed back, John, I have worked on my parachute. I have opened it, and it works. So I can vouch that it has helped me in many, many ways, with gratitude, compassion, equanimity. And I think compassion is absolutely key. As a Member of Parliament who represented the poorest ward in the whole of Wales, my office was located in the poorest ward in the whole of Wales, and people would knock on my door with terrible, terrible problems. And you've got to be careful that in professions, like being an MP, I was a teacher for 15 years, or in a medical profession, where you need compassion, that you don't get compassion fatigue. And I think mindfulness has helped me personally to ensure that I don't, that I've kept my heart open and not closed, despite the fact I've had 18 years as a Member of Parliament and 15 years as a teacher. So I think it's a natural product of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the key to opening all of those doors to the gifts of the mind. So I think that's the way forward, is developing a personal practice. I was at the Bangor University conference last July, and there were 700 delegates at the conference, and then they had breakout sessions, and the breakout session for compassion was the most attended of all of the breakout sessions. And it was about 5 times bigger than the politics session, which I was addressing. And I was pleased to see that, because compassion is key.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for your presentation. It's been wonderful. If everyone could please join me in thanking Chris.